Fluent Fables. Learn English with story.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Fluent Fables. I'm so glad you're here. If you're looking for a fun and effective way to improve your English, you've come to the right place. Before we dive into today's story, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy this kind of content, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends who are also learning English. Your support helps us create more fantastic stories just like this one. Today, we have a gripping psychological thriller for you titled The Echoes of Elmwood. This is a great story to help you practice your listening skills and expand your vocabulary, especially if you're at an intermediate level. Make sure you listen all the way to the end to get the full story and to learn some new words. Ready? Let's begin. Daniel never knew his Aunt Eleanor. Their family had been estranged for decades, a deep rift that nobody ever spoke about. When a letter arrived informing him he was the sole heir to her estate, he was more curious than sad. The property was a Victorian house on the edge of town, known as Elmwood Manor. The moment he first saw it, a cold, unsettling feeling came over him. The house was beautiful, but its dark windows felt like vacant eyes watching him. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust. White sheets covered the furniture, a silent army of forgotten things. Daniel, a logical software engineer who dealt in data, came to assess the property, sell it, and return to his orderly life. Yet, as he moved through the silent rooms, a sense of being watched grew stronger. It was a subtle feeling at first, but it became more and more difficult to disregard. In the living room, a portrait of a woman he assumed was Aunt Eleanor hung above a fireplace. Her painted eyes seemed to follow him. Her expression was of quiet, profound sorrow. Next to it, an ornate grandfather clock stood silent. He looked at his watch. It was exactly 3:15 p.m. As if on cue, the clock's pendulum swung once. A single, eerie tick. Daniel froze. It was impossible. The clock was clearly not working. He stepped closer, and a soft, almost imperceptible whisper reached his ears. It wasn't a word, more like a sigh on a faint breeze, a sound that made his skin crawl. He told himself it was just the old house settling, a trick of the wind. He tried to find a rational explanation, but his mind kept returning to the feeling of being watched. He went out to the garden for fresh air. The manicured lawns were a stark contrast to the gloom inside. It was here that he noticed a small, wooden music box on a stone bench. Unlike everything else, it wasn't dusty. He picked it up. An inscription on the bottom read, "To my dearest, always remember." He wound the key, and a hauntingly beautiful melody filled the air, pulling at a memory he couldn't grasp. As the music played, he felt a sudden chill. He looked up at the house, and in an upstairs window, he saw a fleeting glimpse of a pale face watching him. He blinked, and it was gone. He told himself it was a reflection, or a trick of his mind, but the feeling of dread returned with a force he could no longer repudiate. This house held secrets, secrets his aunt had kept. He decided then that he would not sell the house. He needed to understand the mystery, the echoes of a life he never knew. His orderly world was crumbling, replaced by a consuming curiosity he found impossible to resist. He felt trapped in a labyrinth of his own making. Daniel spent the next few days absorbed by the house. He was convinced the answers were inside. He began a systematic search, room by room, looking for anything out of place. He started with his aunt's bedroom, a place frozen in time. A large wooden wardrobe stood against one wall. When he opened it, a faint scent of lavender filled the air. He ran his hand over a silk dress, and for a fleeting moment, he felt a cold touch on his own hand. He flinched, his heart racing. He was starting to succumb to the unsettling atmosphere, his rationality losing the battle against his growing paranoia. In the study, he found an old, leather-bound journal. It was Aunt Eleanor's. The pages were filled with her elegant handwriting, a chronicle of a life filled with quiet despair. She wrote about a profound loneliness, a feeling of being trapped in the house. But what truly grabbed his attention were the later entries. They were disjointed, almost frantic. She mentioned whispers in the walls, shadows that moved, and a presence that watched her every move. She wrote about a secret, something hidden, something she had to protect from the outsiders. The entries ended abruptly on a torn-out page. Daniel felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. What was the secret? Who were the outsiders? He returned to the living room, drawn back to the grandfather clock. He knelt down, examining its base. He noticed a small, almost inconspicuous seam in the back. He ran his fingers along it and felt a faint click. A hidden compartment popped open. Inside, he found a single, tarnished silver key. It was unlike any key he had ever seen, with intricate carvings on its handle. It felt incredibly heavy in his hand. As he held the key, a chilling whisper seemed to come from the walls, a sound so loud he couldn't ignore it. "He knows." The words were clear, a gravelly, male voice. Daniel spun around, his eyes wide with fear. There was no one there. He was alone. His mind was playing tricks on him, but the voice was too real. He stumbled backward, dropping the key. He scrambled to pick it up, his hands shaking. He looked at his aunt's portrait. Her painted eyes now held an expression not of sorrow, but of pure terror. It was a terrifying, unprecedented experience for him, a man of logic and facts. He began to search the house for a lock that fit the key. He checked every door and every box, but none matched. Frustration and panic began to rise. He was a prisoner in his own mind. He was defeated. He happened to glance at a small, ornate frame next to his aunt's portrait. It held a dried flower. He noticed a small keyhole on its side. He had a sudden, overwhelming feeling that this was it. His hands shaking, he inserted the silver key. It fit perfectly. The frame opened like a tiny door, revealing a folded piece of paper. He pulled it out, his heart pounding. It was a letter, written in his aunt's handwriting. He read the first line. "My dearest Daniel," it began. A cold shock went through him. "If you are reading this, it means the house has chosen you just as it chose me. The truth is not what it seems. The house is not haunted. It is a prison. The whispers, they are contingent on a terrible secret, a secret you must protect. He is watching, always. He is listening. I am sorry, my dear, for I have led you into a trap." He stopped reading, his blood turning to ice. The house wasn't haunted. It was a trap. But who was he? And what was the secret? The letter fell from Daniel's trembling fingers. His aunt hadn't been afraid of ghosts. She had been afraid of a person. The house wasn't haunted. It was a cage. He reread the words. "The whispers, they are contingent on a terrible secret." He looked around the room, every shadow now a threat. He picked up the letter again. It was a long, rambling confession filled with her fears. She wrote about her husband's business partner, a man named Arthur Finch, who had a chilling demeanor. He had coerced her husband into a terrible deal involving valuable land. When her husband died, she suspected Finch was responsible. She had discovered an old network of listening devices hidden in the walls. The whispers were his voice. He is watching. She had written, "He is listening." Daniel felt a wave of nausea. All the strange occurrences, the single clock tick, the whispers. It all made a terrifying, horrible sense. Finch wasn't a ghost. He was still here, still listening, still watching. Daniel's thoughts raced. His aunt had kept the key because it was the only thing that could reveal the truth. But why had she led him here? He read the final lines. She had no choice. She had to ensure the secret would be found. The house was the only place she could be safe from Finch's immediate reach, but now that he was here, Finch would know. He realized he was in immediate danger. He had to find the source of the whispers and expose Finch. He raced down to the basement, his mind a mix of fear and determination. He scanned the damp walls, looking for any anomaly, any sign of a hidden space. He finally found it, a loose stone in the back wall. He pulled on it and it slid away, revealing a small, dark room. It was filled with old electronic equipment, a tangle of wires and microphones. This was it. This was the listening post. As he stood in the doorway, a low, guttural laugh filled the air. A voice from behind him said, "You are a fool, Daniel. You think you've won." He spun around to see a gaunt old man standing at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the light. It was Arthur Finch, with a chilling smile on his face. "I've been waiting for you," Finch said, his voice a low, threatening growl. "Your aunt's little ghost story was clever. I just had to sustain the illusion long enough for you to come here." He stepped into the light, and Daniel saw he held a gun. Daniel's heart stopped. "The property is now in your name," Finch continued. which means I can finally get rid of you and take what is mine. The key, it wasn't the secret, it was the bait. Your aunt hid a fortune here, a fortune she promised me. He raised the gun. Daniel had no choice but to capitulate. But as Finch moved closer, Daniel noticed something. Finch's hand was shaking uncontrollably. His eyes were wide and terrified. He wasn't looking at Daniel. He was looking at something behind him. Daniel slowly turned around. The door to the secret room had closed, and a deep humming sound filled the air. The temperature plummeted. A shadowy apparition emerged from the darkness, a figure of pure sorrow and rage. It was Eleanor. Finch screamed, a sound less of a man and more of an animal, and fired his gun wildly. He fell backwards, eyes wide with a terror that Daniel understood. Finch hadn't just been a listener. He had killed Eleanor. And now, she was back. The apparition floated toward Finch, and as it passed through him, a final chilling whisper filled the room. My dearest Daniel. Now you know. Arthur Finch fell to the ground, lifeless. The apparition faded, and the humming stopped. The room was silent once more. Daniel stood there, completely incredulous, the gun and the letter at his feet. The house had its secrets, but not the ones he thought. It hadn't been a trap. It had been a key to unlocking the truth, and a way for his aunt to finally be free. Vocabulary and grammar lesson. Unsettling, adjective, causing feelings of unease or disturbance. Example, the strange silence of the house was unsettling. Disregard, verb, to pay no attention to ignore. Example, he told me to disregard her strange behavior. Rational, based on or in accordance with reason or logic. Example, she couldn't find a rational explanation for the strange noise. Repudiate, to refuse to accept or be associated with something. To reject. Example, he tried to repudiate the claims, but the evidence was too strong. Resist, to withstand the action or effect of, to refuse to accept something. Example, it was hard to resist the temptation to eat the entire cake. Labyrinth, a complicated, irregular network of passages or paths. A maze. Example, the old town was a labyrinth of narrow streets. Succumb, to fail to resist pressure, temptation, or a negative force. Example, after a long battle, he finally succumbed to his illness. Chronicle, a factual written account of important or historical events in order of their occurrence. Example, the book is a chronicle of the events of the past decade. Inconspicuous, not clearly visible or attracting attention. Not conspicuous. Example, he wore a plain, inconspicuous gray suit, so no one would notice him. Unprecedented, never done or known before. Example, the amount of rainfall was unprecedented for this time of year. Grammar structure. Conditional sentences, type 3. This structure is used to talk about unreal situations in the past. It describes what would have happened if something else had happened or not happened. Structure. If plus past perfect would have plus past participle. Example, if he had arrived on time, he would have seen the beginning of the movie. Example from the story's context, if Daniel hadn't picked up the music box, he wouldn't have felt the cold. I hope you enjoyed that thrilling story. What did you think of the ending? Did you see that twist coming? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your ideas and feedback. If you want to keep improving your English through exciting stories, make sure you're subscribed to Fluent Fables so you don't miss our next video. Don't forget to like this video and check out our other stories on the channel. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.